My name's Kenneth Raymond. I'm a photographer and filmmaker, and today I'm going to show you how to create this very basic, simple time-lapse sequence using LRTimelapse and Lightroom only. Here we are in LRTimelapse. This is the brand new version that was just released within the last week or two, and this is the free version. And I'll put a link in the description below so you can grab it. You can start with the free. It limits you to 400 images, but you can grab it, try it out, see if it works for you before you spend the money for the licensing for it. You are restricted to this one for private use only. There is no commercial use with it. However, because you may not have the program yet, I'm going to stick with the free version. I'm going to stick with 400 images. So that way we're working together on this. With this being a brand new version, there may be some things on here I don't know about yet, so we may just be learning this together. So let's jump in. When you open it up, over on the left, you'll see your folder hierarchy. All you do is simply scroll through, navigate to where your photos are. For your image, you click on it, it automatically loads and does what it calls initiate. And that just creates all the XMP files that Lightroom is going to use as you go through and process your RAWs. This program and Lightroom will work together seamlessly to correct for little light flickering hiccups and whatnot that might be present through your sequence. To start, click on the keyframe wizard. If you don't know what keyframes are, because this may all be brand new to you, keyframes are a spot within a film sequence that indicate a point of change. LRTimelapse will evaluate your entire sequence, and it's really good at figuring out what are going to be the best frames for dropping these keyframes. And that is, at the beginning, it needs to be a certain thing. At the next keyframe, it needs to be a certain thing. And with this particular sequence, it's very basic, no camera settings changed, and we're not going to have to do a whole lot to it to adjust for that difference of light and the changing of light and all the camera settings that we may change in a more complicated, more technically difficult sequence. And here, LRTimelapse has created just two keyframes, one in the beginning, one in the end, and that'll work fine for us because camera settings didn't change at all through this sequence. We hit save, and real quick, because I'm a dork, I always open that up and I give it a quick preview playthrough just to see what it might look like when it's done. Right now, I'm not too awfully worried about the little bit of flickering that you see present. There's some shadows passing by from the clouds going over, and we kind of like that. We're not going to worry too much about that. Once we get it saved, I'll hit it again just in case. It's real quick, simple, and easy to drag it in and import it into Lightroom by simply clicking and dragging that button. Once this is all open, we're in the development module. Come down here to filters and choose LRT keyframes. And this brings in the photos that LRTimelapse keyframed for us. And we're going to adjust only these two photos. And then we're going to go back into LRTimelapse, and LRTimelapse is going to effortlessly apply the changes we've made with these two photos to our entire Lightroom sequence. Again, the beauty and the power of these two programs working together makes it very, very easy for us, because these two really are just still photos. Now that we're in Lightroom, we could just do what is our normal Lightroom photo workflow. For myself, at the bottom, if this was going to be just a regular still photo for a print, posting on social media, whatever the case may be, I would probably start with camera landscape for myself. But because this is going to be in film form, excuse me while I trip on my teeth, I'm going to stick in Adobe Standard. And then we're going to run through this just very, very quickly. This isn't so much how to edit a photo, how to use Lightroom tutorial as it is how to use the two programs together, LRTimelapse and Lightroom, for processing out your time-lapse sequence. And just real quick, I'm going to try a couple presets. I think I'm just going to stick with auto, cool it down just a little bit. Yeah, that works for now. Turn my highlights all the way down, shadows all the way up. Set the white point real quick. And I'm just holding down Alt and then clicking and dragging until I get a couple pixels on the screen. Back it down just a touch. That works for me. Do the same thing for black. That looks good. Add a little bit of contrast. Continue on down. A little bit of clarity. Typically no more than 14 because it is going to be in film form. My vibrance, I go half of clarity when I know it's going to be a film. Just adjust the saturation a little bit. Yep, that looks good. Come down, we'll check for noise. There shouldn't be any noise because this was the middle of the day, well lit, fast shutter. There is a little bit that we'll pull out real quick. Come back up. On films, I don't sharpen any higher than 40. And then I still, just like in a still, I mask out. I'm going to mask out the sky because, again, that's what I do. Because any noise reduction I took out is going to be brought back in when I bring up sharpening. And typically on my flat surfaces, I don't want any sharpening. That looks good. I think I'm going to bump up just a touch. See, there's a little bit of vignetting up in there, if you notice. That's because LRTimelapse, at least in the previous versions, let's see if it still does, adds just a touch of a vignette. Yep, it still does. I prefer to take it out. If I'm going to vignette, I prefer to do that in post-production and After Effects, which we'll get into later in the series. This is just basic stuff right now. You can see there's still a touch of vignetting up here. So I'll just take it out manually with lens correction. Just a little bit. Yeah, about like that is good. Come back up, check our before, check our after. That's not too bad. I think we can live with that. And now, Control, click this other photo so that both are highlighted. Come up here to Scripts, sync the time-lapse frames, and now that last photo is adjusted. And for me, it looks like it might be just a little too bright, so we're going to bring the exposure down just a little. Going to double check the white point. Yep, we can bump that down just a little. Recheck the black point. There, I kind of like that. One thing to consider, if you're in the latest version of Lightroom or any CC version, there's this awesome tool called dehaze, and it's basically just intelligent contrasting. Be a little leery of using it in a time-lapse sequence, because while LRTimelapse will sync everything across the entire sequence, dehaze evaluates each image individually and then applies it individually as it feels the photo needs. So that can introduce some additional flickering into your sequence that you may not otherwise be able to deal with. So exercise caution using dehaze in your time-lapse sequence. But now that that one's adjusted, We like that one. We like that one. Hit G for going back to grid view, metadata, save metadata, or Control S. Then we go back to LRTimelapse. Come back up on the full screen. There we go. Hit reload, and that reloads the entire sequence. Hit auto transition, and now LRTimelapse is going to automatically apply the transitions between the first photo all the way down to the last photo, and automatically adjust every photo in between. Once those are adjusted, you hit save, and we're not seeing our adjustments yet. It's still kind of LRTimelapse has this thing called visual previews. And what this does is that it generates the previews for each photo through your entire sequence with our adjustments applied to them. This, however, takes a minute. Thanks to movie magic, you're not even going to know. All right, now that that's done, hit the play button, and we can see what our sequence looks like. You can see it's got a little bit of flickering. It's not too bad, though. It's got some shadows passing, but that's from the clouds going by overhead. And generally, it's not bad. This pink line here represents the overall brightness of each frame. And now, to correct for that little bit of deflickering that there is, we click on Visual Deflicker, and it's going to suggest what it thinks it should be. You can look at the green line now, and that's what LRTimelapse is going to adjust everything to smooth out the transition in the brightness from frame to frame. And I'm going to bump this one up just a little bit to about like that, because if you crank it all the way up, you're going to have a result you don't like. It's going to be pretty flat, and you're going to lose a lot of that shadowing caused by the clouds that are in this. So we'll back it back down, and we're going to hit apply, and it's going to apply an adjustment to every frame. We hit save, and again, it's going to generate the preview to show us that adjustment, and it's going to take a few minutes. Now's a good time to get up, refill your coffee, grab a beer, grab a scotch, kick back for a few minutes. And we're back. Now that it's all done, applying our visual deflicker adjustment we told it to do, we'll hit the play button. And it didn't turn out too bad. There's a couple little what the hell moments in there, but I do know that that's just for whatever reason a bad preview frame. I do know that in the final render, that's not going to be present, so I'm not even going to worry about it for the sake of this tutorial. One more time, just to make sure that we like it. And yeah, I think that's good to go. So, once again, I'm going to hit the save just because I'm anal about that. We go back into Lightroom, and this time, come over here, click on Full Sequence, Control A to select all, metadata, read metadata from files, back to the Develop module. With everything selected, click that little thing there for auto sync. So that way it applies the crop we're going to give it to everything. Click on that, choose 16:9, and then we can kind of move it around, figure out where we want to have it. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. That looks good to me. Call it done. Wait for everything to finish syncing. And that's done. And now everything in our sequence has the same crop. Oop, my bad. With everything selected, go back to the grid view by hitting G. Hit export. choose LRTimelapse. Choose that one. Hit OK. Now we're going to tell it where we want it to go. And just to keep it simple, I created a desktop folder right here. Select. What do we want to call it? I'll just call this one Episode 1. We don't have to worry about anything here. Yada, yada, yada. Hit Export. Now this is going to export it, and then it's going to call up, or at least it should, if it's like the older versions, call up the video rendering tool in LRTimelapse after it's done with this. So once again, we're going to use some movie magic, and we're back. And as expected, the LRTimelapse render dialog popped up, easy peasy, just the way it's supposed to be. And it has some defaults selected for us, which really for this project, we don't really have to change anything except maybe the frame rate. We can leave it at 1080p, which is fine. The H.264 codec is fine for what we're doing. On the frame rate, I am going to change to 30. That's my default. It's kind of what I use for pretty much everything. I stay away from the 24. I stay away from the 29.976 and just keep it at a straight 30. The speed, you can adjust the speed, have it play slow, have it play fast, whatever you may like. So we're going to keep it at the default. The quality, I'm going to bump it up to high. The quality with this renderer refers to overall bit depth. I'm not sure what the numbers are associated with each, but high is going to be plenty good enough for us for this project. Color sampling 420 is fine. Wide gamut is fine for us for this. And nah, don't care about that. Don't care about that. And hit render. And the LRTimelapse renderer is fairly quick. And again, it's using Lightroom to go back and forth. You can see down here the progress. When it comes to rendering and squishing stuff from what is essentially JPEG form with this, this renderer works almost as fast as the Adobe Media Encoder. So it's not too bad. And I'm going to put it on pause again and join you back up when this is done. Yeah, now that the render is done, nice and quick and easy, let's have a look-see and see how we've done. And overall, it's really not too bad. And this is just a good example of how quick and easy LRTimelapse is to use in conjunction with Lightroom. And this, I don't know if it's showing on your screen, and I hit a wrong button because I do that a lot because I have rented hands. Pop that up. We'll just close that out because we don't need it. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. I don't know if you can see it on your screen. On my screen in front of me anyway, it's kind of a little funky. The clouds are jumping a little bit. I do know that's going to be a buffer problem with my machine because I have so many things going right now. But we'll end it here. Thanks for joining in. And in the next lesson, I'm going to show you how I use LRTimelapse, Lightroom, After Effects, and then Media Encoder to create the Holy Grail, as we call it, time-lapse. Thanks a lot. Hit the subscribe button to stay up to date. Hit the like button. Drop any comments or questions down below, especially if you would like me to cover any specific time-lapse related thing. Drop a comment down below and we'll get it covered. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.